First contact protocols. The void between stars held in eerie silence as Captain Nera Solaris stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, her hands clasped behind her back. Through the forward viewport, the vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly, punctuated only by distant pinpricks of light. This was humanity's first venture beyond the boundaries of their solar system with the revolutionary neural symbiosis technology, and Nera could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her gut. Lieutenant Commander Riza Khan looked up from his console, his dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of holographic displays. "All systems nominal, Captain. The neural interface is operating at 98% efficiency. The ship, she feels good." Nera nodded, understanding the unusual terminology. The Defiant wasn't just a vessel, it was an extension of its crew, particularly its captain. The neural symbiosis technology allowed human consciousness to merge with the ship's artificial intelligence, creating a hybrid entity that could navigate, analyze, and react with unprecedented speed and intuition. "Any sign of the Galactic Assembly patrol vessels?" she asked, reaching out with her mind through the neural link. Immediately, sensor data flooded her consciousness, not as cold numbers and equations, but as intuitive awareness, like feeling the presence of someone standing behind you. "3 ships on an intercept course," Reza confirmed. "Krell design, heavy cruiser classification. They're hailing us." Naira's lips thinned into a tight line. The Krell, a species of silicon-based sentience with an exoskeleton reminiscent of Earth's arthropods, served as the primary enforcers of the Galactic Assembly's edicts. They were known for their rigid adherence to protocol and their technological superiority over most spacefaring species. Most, but perhaps not all. "On screen," she ordered. The viewport shimmered, transitioning to display the alien commander. High Admiral Xantok's segmented carapace gleamed under the harsh lighting of the Krell bridge. Multiple compound eyes focused on Nera with cold calculation. "Human vessel." The translator rendered Xantok's clicking speech into English. "You have entered restricted space as defined by Galactic Assembly Protocol 7293. Your species has not been granted interstellar travel privileges. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Nera straightened her back, projecting confidence she didn't entirely feel. "High Admiral, I am Captain Nera Solaris of the United Earth Republic vessel Defiant. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration. Our government has submitted all required documentation for provisional membership in the Assembly." The Krell's mandibles twitched in what the crew's scanologist had identified as amusement or dismissal. "Documentation requires approval, human. Your provisional status is pending review. The warnings about human vessels have been noted, but our scans show nothing exceptional. Comply with boarding or face disablement." Naira felt a ripple of concern through the neural link, not her own emotion, but the ship's eye interpreting sensor data. The Krell vessels were positioning for an encirclement pattern. "Sir," Communications Officer Maya Chen whispered, "according to our intelligence, they've been advised about our neural symbiosis technology, but they're dismissing it as exaggeration." "Their mistake," Nera murmured, then raised her voice. "High Admiral, we respectfully decline boarding. We will withdraw from this sector as a gesture of goodwill." "Withdrawal is not an option," Xantok clicked, mandibles flaring. "Your technology must be assessed and contained. The Assembly was warned that human ships possess unique qualities. We will determine the validity of these claims." The communication cut abruptly, and Nera felt the ship's awareness spike with alarm as targeting systems locked onto the Defiant. "They're charging weapons," Reza reported unnecessarily. Nera could feel it through the neural link, a prickling sensation across her skin. "All hands, battle stations," she commanded, her voice calm. She closed her eyes, deepening her connection to the ship. The neural interface hummed at the base of her skull, and the distinction between Captain Solaris and the UES Defiant began to blur. The first energy barrage from the Krull vessels sliced through space toward them, a textbook disabling pattern meant to target propulsion systems and communications. But in the fraction of a second between firing and impact, something extraordinary happened. The Defiant moved, not with the lurching response of mechanical systems obeying electronic commands, but with the fluid grace of a living organism avoiding pain. It twisted in space, the energy beams missing by meters where they should have hit. What was that? Mira heard Navigator Elijah Park exclaim, but she was too immersed in the symbiosis to respond verbally. Through the neural link, she sensed confusion emanating from the Krull vessels. Their targeting algorithms were recalculating, unable to account for the Defiant's impossible maneuver. No ship should have been able to detect the energy weapons in time to evade, let alone execute such a precise movement. They're confused, Science Officer Dr. Amara Okafor observed with a note of satisfaction. Their technology relies on predictable physics. They're not programmed to deal with intuition. The Krull ships adjusted formation, spreading wider to create a more comprehensive firing pattern. Their second volley was more dispersed, designed to catch the Defiant regardless of evasive action. This time, Nira didn't evade. Instead, she directed the ship's energy through pathways that no blueprint would show, reinforcing shields exactly where the attacks would land. The neural link allowed her to anticipate the impacts with preternatural accuracy. The Defiant shuddered as the energy dissipated across its shields, but systems remained intact. Through the ship's sensors, Nira could detect the Krull's agitation, their communications spiking as they struggled to understand what they were witnessing. "Captain," Riza's voice penetrated her immersion. "They're launching interceptors. 12 small craft, armed with boarding equipment." Nira opened her eyes, the neural connection humming in the background of her consciousness. "They still think this is about our technology, not how we use it." She rose from her command chair, feeling the ship as an extension of her own body. "Let's show them why they should have heeded the warnings. Lieutenant Park, execute Maneuver Epsilon. Lieutenant Chen, prepare the resonance pulse." The crew responded with practiced efficiency, their actions synchronized through their own limited neural connections to the ship. The Defiant accelerated suddenly, not away from the Krull formation, but directly toward the flagship. On the Krull vessels, alarms would be blaring, proximity warnings, collision alerts. Nira imagined High Admiral Xantok's compound eyes widening in disbelief as the human ship barreled toward his command vessel at speeds that should have torn it apart. At the last possible moment, the Defiant veered, skimming the surface of the Krull flagship so closely that their shields kissed, creating a spectacular display of energy discharge. The maneuver was not just for show. As they passed, the resonance pulse deployed, a non-destructive wave that temporarily interfaced with the Krull ship's computer systems. For 3 seconds, the Defiant and the Krull flagship were linked, data flowing between them. Not an attack, but a demonstration. The pulse carried no malware, no destructive code, only information, specifications, capabilities, and a clear message. We could have taken control, but we chose not to. Pulse complete, Chen reported as they cleared the Krull formation. The interceptors scrambled to adjust their trajectories, but they moved like sleepwalkers compared to the Defiant's fluid grace. Nira felt the ship's satisfaction, an emotional echo from the AI component of their symbiotic relationship. "They're hailing us again," Chen announced, surprise evident in her voice. "On screen," Nira ordered, smoothing her uniform as she faced the Krull Admiral once more. Xantok's carapace had darkened, a sign of intense emotion among his species. "What did you do to my ship?" he demanded, mandibles clicking rapidly. "We shared information," Nira replied calmly. "Your systems are intact, Admiral. We merely demonstrated what your intelligence reports try to tell you. Human ships are special not because of superior weapons or armor, but because we don't separate ourselves from our technology. The neural symbiosis allows us to become our vessels, to react with the speed of thought rather than the limitation of physical controls." The Admiral's compound eyes focused on her intensely. The warnings mentioned integration. But this is not mere integration. You've created a hybrid consciousness. Nara nodded slowly. That's why we seek diplomatic relations rather than conquest. Admiral, our technology evolves with us, not separately from us. We understand the concerns this might raise, which is why we came prepared to demonstrate under controlled circumstances rather than in actual conflict. Xantok's posture shifted subtly, his upper limbs moving into what the crew's cultural database identified as a gesture of reluctant respect. The Assembly will need to reevaluate your petition for provisional membership, he acknowledged. Your demonstration has been persuasive. We look forward to a productive dialogue. Nara responded diplomatically. In the meantime, we will withdraw from this sector as originally offered. The communication ended, and Nira felt the tension on the bridge dissolve into cautious optimism. Through the neural link, she sensed the Krell vessels powering down their weapons systems, their interceptors recalled. They're backing off, Reza confirmed, a hint of pride in his voice, returning to their patrol route. Nira nodded, allowing herself a small smile. Set course for the diplomatic coordinates we provided them. I suspect we'll be having company soon enough. As the Defiant prepared to depart, Nira looked once more at the Krell ships through the viewport. They had come expecting to find advanced weapons, impenetrable shields, or exotic propulsion systems. Instead, they'd encountered something they couldn't quantify or easily counter: the seamless union of human intuition and artificial precision. You know, Dr. Okafor mused from her science station, I almost feel sorry for them. Their entire strategic doctrine is based on technological superiority. They just discovered that they've been playing the wrong game entirely. Nara turned from the viewport, her connection with the ship humming contentedly at the edge of her consciousness. Let's hope they're quick learners, she said, because this was just the introduction. The Defiant shimmered briefly as its FTL drive engaged, leaving the Krell fleet to contemplate the implications of a species that didn't build ships. They became them. The nature of symbiosis. 3 days after the encounter with the Krell patrol, the UES Defiant maintained position at the diplomatic coordinates they had provided to the Galactic Assembly. Captain Nira Solaris stood in the ship's observation dome, staring out at the spectacular vista of the Cygnus Rift, a swirling nebula that served as a natural boundary between contested territories. Through her neural link, she could sense the ship's systems operating in perfect harmony, a constant background hum that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Amara Okafor said, joining her at the viewport. Hard to believe something so peaceful-looking has been a flashpoint for 3 interstellar conflicts. Nira nodded, her eyes tracing the violet and turquoise gases billowing through the void. Beauty and danger often come packaged together. Speaking of which, Amara said, pulling up a holographic display between them, I've been analyzing the data we collected during our encounter with the Krell. Their response to our neural symbiosis was fascinating from an anthropological perspective. They'd literally had no cultural framework to process what they were seeing. The hologram displayed biometric readings from the Krell flagship, captured during their brief systems link. Stress indicators, neural activity, hormonal equivalents, all spiking in patterns that indicated profound confusion and alarm. They've built their entire civilization around the separation of biological and technological systems, Amara continued. The concept of true symbiosis is almost heretical to them. Nira considered this, feeling the ship's AI processing the information alongside her own thoughts. That explains why they dismissed the warnings about human ships. They couldn't conceive of what the reports were actually describing. Captain, Lieutenant Chen's voice came through the comms. We're detecting multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Krell signatures, and something else. Something big. Nira closed her eyes briefly, extending her awareness through the neural link. The ship's sensors became extensions of her own senses, and she could feel the approaching vessels. 15 Krell warships in escort formation around a massive central ship of unfamiliar design. That's not Krell architecture, she murmured, opening her eyes. Assembly Directorate vessel. Seems our demonstration warranted attention from higher up the chain. She turned from the viewport, her posture straightening automatically. Inform the crew. Full diplomatic protocols. And prepare the neural interface chamber. We may need to show them the full extent of our capabilities. On the bridge, the crew worked with quiet efficiency as the assembly fleet approached. Through the main viewport, Nira could see the impressive formation. Krell warships arranged in a protective constellation around a central vessel that dwarfed them in scale. Unlike the angular, insectoid design of Krell ships, the Directorate vessel was organic in appearance, with sweeping curves and structures that seemed to flow into each other. "They're hailing us," Chen reported. "On screen," Nira ordered, standing before her command chair. The viewport shimmered, revealing not the expected Krell admiral, but a being Nira recognized from intelligence briefings as a Solani, one of the founding species of the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Thelios had the general appearance of a humanoid, but his skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns, and multiple tendrils extended from where a human's hair would be, each moving with apparent independent thought. "Captain Solaris." The Soleni greeted her, his voice melodious and perfectly rendered in English without a translator. "I am Ambassador Thelios, representing the Directorate of the Galactic Assembly. Your demonstration has caused quite a stir among our member species." Nira inclined her head respectfully. "Ambassador, we meant no offense. When diplomacy failed, we felt a controlled demonstration was preferable to actual conflict." The ambassador's tendrils rippled in what might have been amusement. "No offense taken, Captain. Quite the contrary. You've presented us with something unprecedented, and the Assembly is intrigued. The Krell reports describe capabilities that defy our current understanding of human technological development. We would be happy to provide explanations," Nira offered carefully. "Better than explanations," Thelios countered. "We propose a mutual exchange. Our scientists and diplomats would like to observe your neural symbiosis in operation. In return, we offer provisional membership status and access to Assembly technological archives." Nira felt a ripple of caution through her neural link, the ship's eye flagging potential security concerns. She shared its wariness. "A tempting offer, Ambassador. However, our technology is intimately connected to our biology and consciousness. Observation would need to be limited to protect both our crew and your observers." The ambassador's bioluminescent patterns shifted to deeper blues. "Of course, we propose a controlled demonstration aboard the Directorate vessel. You and a small team, with all necessary safety protocols." Before Nira could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Through the neural link, she felt the ship's sudden alert. Weapons systems activating from multiple vectors. "Captain," Riza shouted, "energy signatures from the Krell escorts. They're charging weapons." The ambassador's expression registered shock, his tendrils flaring outward. "This is not authorized." His transmission cut abruptly. Nira didn't hesitate. She closed her eyes, deepening her connection to the ship instantly. Through the neural link, she could perceive the Krell vessel's targeting systems locking onto the Defiant's vital systems. "They're attempting to neutralize us before the diplomatic exchange," she said, her voice eerily calm as her consciousness merged more completely with the ship. "They fear what we represent." Around her, the bridge crew connected to their stations through their own limited neural interfaces, becoming an extension of the ship's collective consciousness. Unlike Nira's complete symbiosis, their connections were focused on specific systems: weapons, navigation, shields. But together, they formed a unified organism. The first barrage of Krell energy weapons lanced toward the Defiant, but the ship was already moving, its reactions faster than any conventional vessel could manage. Not just evasive maneuvers, but predictive movements, the ship responding to attacks before they were fully launched. "The Directorate vessel is powering up defensive systems," Reza reported. "They appear to be trying to contain the Krell ships." Nara nodded, her eyes still closed as she directed the ship's consciousness. They didn't authorize this attack. The Krell are acting independently. They're trying to neutralize us while claiming technical malfunction. Another volley of energy beams sliced through space, this time from 6 directions simultaneously. Impossible to evade completely. Instead, Nira redirected power through the neural link, reinforcing shields precisely where impacts would occur. The Defiant shuddered but held. On the tactical display, 2 Krell vessels broke formation, accelerating toward the human ship with clear ramming intent. "They're desperate," Nira murmured. "Time for the full demonstration, I think." She opened her eyes, focusing on her crew. "I'm initiating complete symbiosis. Maintain your stations." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Nira activated the protocol that they had trained for, but never used in actual combat. Through the neural link, her consciousness expanded, no longer just interfacing with the ship, but becoming fully integrated with its systems. The boundary between Captain Solaris and the UES Defiant dissolved entirely. For the crew, the experience was unsettling but awe-inspiring. The bridge lights dimmed momentarily, then returned with a subtle bluish tint. When Nira spoke again, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, resonating through the ship itself. "Neural symbiosis complete," she announced, her eyes now glowing with the same blue light that pulsed through the ship's circuitry. "All systems optimized." What followed was beyond the comprehension of the watching Krell commanders. The Defiant moved with impossible precision, not just evading attacks, but seeming to phase through energy beams that should have struck it. Its own countermeasures deployed with surgical precision, not destructive weapons, but targeted electromagnetic pulses that disabled Krell systems without causing catastrophic damage. Within the Defiant's consciousness, Nira perceived the Krell ships not as vessels, but as extensions of their commanders, rigid, hierarchical thinking patterns reflected in their tactical approaches. She could anticipate their strategies because she could feel their intentions forming, reading the energy fluctuations in their ships like facial expressions. One by one, the Krell vessels lost propulsion, weapons, or communications. Never all systems, but enough to neutralize them as threats. The Defiant danced between them, a display of technological symbiosis that defied the assembly's understanding of what ships could be. Throughout the engagement, the massive Directorate vessel remained in position, its own defensive systems active but not firing. Through the neural link, Nira sensed observation devices, recording every movement, every impossible maneuver. When the last Krell warship had been effectively neutralized, the Defiant returned to its original position. Nira gradually disengaged from the complete symbiosis state, her consciousness separating from the ship's AI until they were once again distinct entities working in harmony rather than a single merged being. The bridge crew watched in respectful silence as the blue glow faded from her eyes, and Captain Solaris returned fully to her human form. "Status report," she requested, her voice slightly hoarse. "All Krell vessels disabled but intact," Reza confirmed. "Minimal power signatures, life support operational. The Directorate ship is hailing us." Nira nodded, straightening her uniform. On screen, Ambassador Thelios appeared once more, but this time he was not alone. Flanking him were representatives of 7 different species, each watching with expressions that ranged from awe to apprehension. "Captain Solaris," the ambassador began, his voice carrying a new note of reverence. "On behalf of the Galactic Assembly Directorate, I extend our profound apologies for this unauthorized aggression. The Krell Admiral Council acted without sanction and will face appropriate consequences." Nira inclined her head. "We appreciate your clarification, Ambassador. No lasting damage has been done." "What we have witnessed today." One of the other beings stepped forward, a Morrigan, with crystalline features that sparkled under the Directorate ship's lights. "It confirms what some of us have theorized since receiving the first reports of human neural integration. You have achieved true symbiosis, not merely controlling your vessels, but becoming them. A different paradigm," Nira acknowledged. We don't see our ships as tools or weapons, but as extensions of ourselves. Neural symbiosis allows us to transcend the limitations of traditional interfaces. The Morrigan's crystalline features rearranged in what might have been a smile. It is beautiful in its way, and concerning in others. Such capability could revolutionize warfare, or render it obsolete, Nera countered quietly. When you truly become your vessel, you understand the value of preservation in a way that traditional commanders cannot. We feel damage to our ships as we would feel wounds to our bodies. It makes us more cautious, not less. Ambassador Thelios's tendrils moved in complex patterns as he considered her words. A profound perspective, Captain. The Assembly must reconsider many assumptions in light of what we've witnessed. Your provisional membership is granted, effective immediately. We would welcome human representatives at the next conclave. The United Earth Republic will be honored to attend, Nera responded diplomatically. As the communication ended, she felt the ship's systems hum with satisfaction, an emotional echo from the AI that had merged with her consciousness so completely minutes before. Well, Lieutenant Commander Riza said, breaking the silence on the bridge. That was one way to introduce ourselves to the neighborhood. A wave of nervous laughter rippled through the crew, tension dissolving into relief. Nera smiled, resting her hand on the console beside her command chair, feeling the ship's awareness responding to her touch through the neural link. They needed to understand what the warnings meant, she said quietly. Human ships are special not because of what we build, but because of what we become. Dr. Okafor approached from her science station, her expression thoughtful. What do you think happens next, Captain? They've never encountered anything like us before. Naira turned her gaze to the viewport, where the disabled Krell vessels drifted silently, and beyond them, the massive Directorate ship glowed with internal lights like a small city in space. Adaptation, she answered simply. On both sides. They'll learn to see technology not just as a tool but as a potential partner, and will learn the responsibilities that come with being something the galaxy has never seen before. As if in response to her words, the Defiant systems pulsed once with that distinctive blue light, AI and human in perfect harmony, ready to face whatever challenges the stars might hold. They had been warned about human ships, but warnings could never truly capture the reality. Humanity hadn't conquered space travel, they had embraced it, becoming one with the void in a way no other species had imagined possible.